Story 1. I used to think I'd do anything for screen time. Now, kneeling on the cold pine needles behind a stranger's mansion and listening to my own heartbeat drown out the wind, I'm ready to walk away from acting forever. I grew up in Saskatoon, where the only movie theater still has sloped floors and a popcorn machine that smells like 1987. Hollywood to me was Narnia. I'm 32 now, and I wish I could yank my 17-year-old self off that Greyhound and tell him to learn welding instead. It wasn't that I lacked talent. Small roles came easily. 2 Canadian-shot thrillers, 1 streaming service sitcom cameo, even a goofy beer commercial that paid 3 months' rent. The part that broke me was a job that never even listed a title on the call sheet. Last November dragged on like a head cold. 4 o'clock sunsets, sideways rain, no union productions until spring. My agent, Laura, phoned while I was microwaving leftover noodles. Got a winter contract, she said. 1 month, maybe more. Role is neighbor number 6. Pays above scale, cash every day. I laughed. Background work in a residential street set? They rejected you 3 times, Laura added. So act grateful. Dawn on day 1, I drove to an address north of Nanaimo that my GPS insisted didn't exist. Fog hugged the asphalt. Suddenly a prefab cul-de-sac appeared. 8 perfect bungalows, lawns greener than November has any right to allow, and a white marquee tent flapping in the breeze. Inside the tent, production assistants with earpieces handed out thermoses of cocoa and fat brown envelopes. Mine contained 15 crisp 20s. A sandy-haired guy about my age rifled through the breakfast tray. I recognized him from an indie called Wheat Kings. Samir Patel, right? I whispered. His eyebrows shot up. Thought nobody saw that movie. He introduced himself as Sam and warned me to pay attention when the assistant director spoke. We're not extras, he muttered. We're props. The AD, a bulldog named Carver, climbed a folding stool and belted instructions. Rule 1, behave like real residents. Rake a lawn, walk a dog, argue over recycling, whatever sells the illusion. Rule 2, if the homeowner tries to chat, respond politely, but briefly, as though you've never heard their name. Rule 3, bellowed in unison by the veterans. No direct eye contact. Sam leaned close. Homeowners a megastar called Orion, Grammy, Oscar, whatever. Wants a normal neighborhood experience. I nearly laughed until I saw Carver's clenched jaw. Apparently, Orion had rented this entire cul-de-sac, staffed every house with actors, and trucked in identical furniture to keep continuity. 1 slip, Carver warned, and the contract was void. 9 a.m. sharp, a klaxon sounded, and we dispersed. I grabbed a plastic rake and started fussing with leaves that had clearly been arranged by the art department. Across the street, the bald, burly guy practiced backing his electric sedan in and out of a garage. Over and over. Perfect 3-point turns. The illusion was weirdly convincing. birdsong played from hidden speakers, and someone, somewhere, kept a barbecue smoking just enough to smell like Saturday. Half an hour in, the front door of number 4 opened. Orion stepped onto the porch, wearing a charcoal hoodie and sneakers so white they glowed. I'd expected Hollywood veneers and bodyguards. Instead, he looked exhausted, almost frail. He strolled down the driveway, studying us the way a diver studies sharks. Fascinated, wary, ready to bolt. When he reached my patch of lawn, he nodded. I stared at the grass, heart thudding, but kept raking. "Morning," he said. His voice was soft but unmistakable. I'd heard it fill arenas. "Nice day for it." I mumbled something about the weather, never lifting my gaze above his socks. He lingered a moment, then ambled across to Burly Guy's sedan and asked about mileage. Burly stammered, eyes fixed on the license plate. By noon, Orion had retreated indoors, and Carver dismissed us. Another envelope, same amount, and an instruction to return Friday. I drove back to my basement suite, convinced I'd hallucinated the whole thing. Friday dawned, wetter, darker. The tent buzzed with gossip. Burly Guy was gone. Sam claimed he'd been spotted glancing at Orion's reflection in a window. The replacements looked jumpy. Carver repeated the 3 rules twice. We waited 3 hours. Orion never showed. Carver's radio crackled. He told us to drop character, collect pay, and leave. As I reached my truck, he pressed extra bills into my palm. Client extended your option. Don't make weekend plans. That night, I zapped through channels and landed on a talk show repeat. Orion sat beneath studio lights, charming the host with an anecdote about hiking in Peru. The audience roared. I kept thinking of his shoulders hunched against Vancouver drizzle, of how hungry his eyes looked for something he couldn't define. At 1:14 a.m., my phone shrilled. Unknown number. Carver's whiskey voice slurred through. Emergency night scene, double rate. Car picks you up in 10. I should have refused, but rent was overdue. The van dropped 5 of us at the cul-de-sac. No tent, no crew on radios, just Orion pacing his driveway under the street lamp, holding a steaming mug. His cheeks were wet. Carver herded us into position wordlessly. I was assigned to drag a garbage bin to the curb. Orion drifted toward me, trembling. Cold night, I ventured, forgetting to avert my eyes. His gaze locked onto mine, blue, bloodshot, desperate. Do you ever feel like everyone is pretending? He whispered. I nodded, throat dry. Behind us, Carver coughed a warning, but Orion didn't look away. Walk with me? We circled the block. Orion talked about growing up busking, how applause once felt like belonging, but now sounded like waves erasing footprints. I listened, hypnotized. He stopped at an empty lot where the fog swallowed the streetlights. Stay, he said, touching my sleeve. His fingers were ice. Please. Headlights swung around the corner. Carver leaned out the production SUV. "Jay, wrap! Now!" Orion's hand fell away. I muttered sorry and jogged to the vehicle. Carver slammed the door behind me. "You're done," he growled. "Client saw you stare." He wasn't kidding. Monday, my access badge deactivated. I spent the day refreshing job boards until a text pinged. "Hey, Orion, need a friend, not an actor. Dinner?" My stomach flipped. Moral alarms clanged, but curiosity shoved them aside. I replied, yes. Dinner was at a shuttered rooftop bistro, lit only by hurricane lamps. Orion greeted me like we were old classmates. No handlers, no cameras, just 2 plates of paella and an open bottle of Tempranillo. He quizzed me about my life, family, regrets, whether I believed in fate. I asked nothing about his fame. It felt like poking a bruise. When we parted, he pressed a keycard into my hand. "Private rehearsal tomorrow, noon. Trust me." The address printed on the card was downtown Calgary, over 600 kilometers away. "Flights booked," he added, reading my face. "You'll like the show." I told Lara I was visiting family. She didn't buy it, but wished me luck. The next morning, I boarded a half-empty jet. A driver met me at arrivals and wordlessly delivered me to an abandoned ice rink. Snowflakes blew through broken skylights. Inside, workers erected plywood facades, townhouses, picket fences, a fake park, an indoor neighborhood. Carver appeared, clipboard tight in his fist. He looked 10 years older. "Client wants a new set," he muttered. "Bigger, permanent. You keep your mouth shut, and maybe you get a contract again." I never got the chance to answer. Orion strode across the raw concrete in a parka, joy blazing from him. "Perfect, isn't it?" He spun like a kid on Christmas. No sky, no paparazzi, just us. He grabbed my hand, pulled me toward a half-finished porch. "You'll live next door. Real lease, real salary. We can barbecue, argue about property taxes, borrow sugar. Everything the songs never gave me." I stammered that I had a life back home. Orion's smile thinned. A rented room and overdue bills? He wasn't wrong, but the certainty in his voice chilled me. He gestured to a row of silent carpenters. Actors, maybe? Their hammers paused mid-swing, eyes lowered. Everyone here understands the privilege of purpose. Snow sifted through the rafters. My breath plumed white. I thought of Burly Guy, of the empty seat in the tent. "What happens when purpose disappoints you?" I asked. Orion's shoulders sagged. "Then we try again, somewhere quieter." He squeezed my arm, gentle but firm. "Come on, Jay, don't look away." Carver cleared his throat. 2 security guards emerged from the shadows behind him, boots crunching on ice shards. I glanced at the gaping exit doors, then at Orion's pleading face. The wind howled through shattered glass, rattling the newborn street signs. I took a slow step backward, eyes never leaving his. And for the first time since I left Saskatoon, I deliberately broke character. "No," I said. Whether I was speaking to Orion, to Carver, or to the hollow echo of my own ambition, I'm still not sure. "I only know I ran," across the ice, past the guards, into the blizzard, until the rink's flickering work lights were swallowed by white. If you're reading this, I made it to a roadside motel with just enough battery to send the tale. Tomorrow, I'll trade acting lessons for bus fare and keep heading east until the prairies swallow me whole. Let Orion build his perfect neighborhood of obedient faces. Let someone else play neighbor number 6. I've decided I'd rather be nobody in a place that's real than anybody in a place that isn't. Story 2. The only reason I ever met old Nathan Cole in the first place was the fence. My back lot in Cloudvale, Oregon, ends where his acreage begins. And every winter, the pine branches buckle under snow, lean across the line, and snap my slats like pencils. 2 weeks ago, on the first bright Saturday of October, he waved me over while I was wrestling loose boards. "Leave it till spring, son," he said. "No point fighting gravity." He had the weather-leathered face of a man who'd never skipped a dawn, but his eyes were sharp as ice chips. I liked him at once. When he asked if I'd help him split firewood that afternoon, "Double pay if you stay for supper," I heard the loneliness tucked between his words and said sure. We worked behind his cabin all day, axes popping like distant gunshots. He told me stories about timber jobs back when a handshake sealed a contract. I told him about my aimless freelance gigs and the mortgage that already felt like a collar. By dusk, the woodpile stood shoulder high, but the sun was bleeding out fast behind the ridge, and I glanced toward the trail that shortcuts to my side of the creek. Nathan followed my gaze and frowned. "Roads mean after dark," he said. "Stay the night. Guest beds clean." I laughed it off, figuring he worried because I'm new to the hills. "I've got a headlamp," I said. "Coyotes won't mind." His jaw tightened, the way a rope does when it takes weight. "A lamp won't help against what's walking tonight." He tapped the side of the chopping block, and I noticed a loop of wrought iron chain coiled there like a lazy snake. He must have seen my curiosity, because he picked it up and tucked it under his coat. "Come inside, Austin. You ought to hear the truth about this valley before you start striding through it after sundown." It felt rude to refuse, so I sent my wife a quick text, "Staying next door, back tomorrow," and followed him into the cabin. Everything smelled of cedar and liniment. A single kerosene lantern hung from a beam, throwing puddles of amber on the plank floor. Nathan poured 2 shots from a dusty bottle of birch schnapps, slid one my way, then laid the iron chain between us like a poker hand. "You believe objects remember things?" he asked. I shrugged. "I believe they outlive us." "That's close enough." He lifted his glass, but before it reached his lips, he pressed his thumb to the rim in a quick, practiced cross. Not the church kind, more like an X marking treasure. I mimicked the gesture out of politeness, and we both drank. The schnapps burned cold as sleet. "Winter of '78, he began. I was 21, trying to haul a pallet of roofing shingles home before the blizzard hit. Truck died halfway up Misery Pike. No cell towers back then, of course. I started hoofing it, thinking the moonlight get me the last 3 miles. About a mile on, I heard a fiddle. He paused to pour another round, though neither of us drank this time. Imagine that sound out here, miles from porch light or pavement. Just a fiddle, chirping like a cricket, steady and sweet. A chill skittered over my scalp. Nathan's voice stayed low and unhurried, but the lantern flame jittered in a draft, and shadows shivered on the walls. I followed it, he said. Curiosity's a predator, son. It drags you by the throat. Came over a rise and saw lanterns ringed around an ash tree. The big one that fell last year. You probably remember hearing the crash. 24 folks danced in coats older than photographs, skirts brushing snow, boots never leaving prints. In the middle stood a woman with a ceramic pitcher, pouring clear liquor into tin cups and pressing them into anyone's hand she fancied. Nathan's fingers grazed the chain. When she passed me the drink, I did what my grandfather taught me. Thumb to rim, make your mark, knock iron before you swallow. I tapped that cup with the chain I keep on my belt. He nudged the links toward me. Each was blackened stiff, as if pulled from a fire. The music heeled over like a dog, kicked in the ribs. Lanterns blinked out. Next breath, I was alone on the edge of Widow's Gulch, toes hanging off the drop. Would have been kindling if I'd taken one more step. I shook my head, half smile, half tremor. Sounds like a hell of a nightmare. Except the cup was still in my fist, he said. Dented tin, fumes of liquor, colder than liquid nitrogen. Held on to it till dawn, just to prove it wasn't a trick of the brain. Hammered it flat later and made these links, so I'd never forget what keeps a man anchored. The schnapps sat oily on my tongue. I wanted to chalk his story up to frontier bourbon and isolation, yet the room felt denser, like the air itself listened for blasphemy. Nathan studied me. Sun's down. You staying? My phone buzzed. Dead battery. No service anyhow. The trail home ran through a cedar tunnel, even daylight barely pierced. I forced a grin. Sure, one night won't kill me. He exhaled through his nose. Relief or resignation? I couldn't tell. We ate rabbit stew while wind fussed at the eaves. Around 10, he showed me to a spare room smelling of mothballs and sage. Iron links dangled over the bed frame. Knock 'em before you sleep, he said, closing the door. I lay listening to the stove crack and settle. Sometime after midnight, a faint scraping drifted through the wall. Bow on strings, coaxing a lazy waltz. I told myself it was a radio or coyotes keening in the wind, but the melody carried human breath. It drifted closer, pacing outside the cabin, circling like a cold current in a pond. Boards creaked in the hall. The doorknob twitched. Instinct shoved me upright. I slapped the chain where it hung, iron clacking like teeth. The music hiccuped, stumbled, then dragged itself away, notes sagging out of tune. Silence rushed in behind it so hard my ears rang. At dawn, Nathan met me on the porch, 2 mugs of chicory coffee steaming between us. Frost glazed every needle and twig, but footprints marred the white, small, flat, and perfectly round, as if someone had set tea saucers in a wandering path. They started at the tree line, circled the cabin twice, and vanished where the creek cuts deep. He watched me trace the pattern. "Haven't seen tracks like that in years," he said. "She only walks when the ground's hungry." I swallowed a taste of metal that wasn't coffee. "Tell me this straight. Do these hills want us gone?" "They crave company," he answered. "Problem is, they don't know how to keep it gentle." He quapped my shoulder. "Fence can wait till spring, but if you must cross at night, carry iron and mark your drink. Habits, cheap insurance." I headed home through brittle grass that snapped under boots like sugar glass. In my pocket, Nathan had tucked one of the links. It pulsed warmth against my thigh, despite the raw air. My own yard never looked smaller or safer. All week, I tried filing the memory under tall tales, yet every dusk, the same fiddle phrase hummed at the edge of hearing, as if reminding me I owed a dance. Thursday night, clouds erased the moon, and the power died across the valley. When my wife suggested we check on Nathan, I opened my mouth to agree, then heard the waltz threading the dark just beyond the back porch light. No lanterns, only sound tugging me toward the property line. I gripped the link so hard, its ridges impressed my skin. The melody paused, expectant. In the hush, I raised my hand to my lips, thumbed an invisible X over my drinkless mouth, and rapped the iron against the doorframe 3 times. The music sank like a stone dropped in deep water and did not rise again. Dawn found snow dusting the fence posts, each slat miraculously unbroken, as though the pines had bent politely out of the way. Tracks dotted the margin, tiny circles leading from Nathan's gate to mine, but none returned. I hammered the link into the inside of our threshold before my coffee cooled. Tonight, I watch the ridgeline while lamps glow in neighboring windows. Wind gusts, branches sway, but the fence holds. Somewhere a violin might scrape a lullaby or a warning. I can't tell which through the pain. Doesn't matter. The chain across my knees is warm as a hearthstone, and my thumb moves of its own accord, marking the rim of every cup, every time. Story 3. I moved into House 17 on Oak Lantern Court the first week of October. A single-story rental tucked between Mrs. Vogel's rose garden and a boarded-up bungalow that the realtor swore would be flipped any day now. My name is Daniel Harris, 31, databases by day, amateur drummer by night. The bathroom was tiny, but I liked its simplicity. 1 mirror, 1 glass holder, 1 green toothbrush. Mine. 11 nights ago, I stepped out of the shower and noticed a yellow toothbrush standing beside it. The bristles glistened, damp, as if someone had just used it. I assumed the previous tenant left it behind, wrapped it in tissue, and tossed it into the kitchen bin. 2 mornings later, the yellow brush was back, this time balanced perfectly against the mirror. I live alone, no spare keys, and the only person who has ever crossed my threshold is the mail carrier, who hands packages through the doorway. Some part of me murmured, "Go next door and ask Mrs. Vogel if she has noticed anything odd." But that felt like admitting fear. So I dropped the brush in the outside trash and told myself I'd been careless. The next sign didn't look like a sign at all. Tuesday, after work, a chipped ceramic thimble sat beside the bathroom tap. Inside, a single strand of long black hair curled like a question mark. I have brown hair cropped short. My visitors are exactly 0. The combination shook me enough that I checked every window latch, installed a deadbolt, and wedged a chair beneath my bedroom knob before I slept. Sleep didn't last. At 2:11 a.m., I surfaced in darkness to a sound I first mistook for the refrigerator motor. Slow, damp inhalations, somebody pacing the edge of the mattress, drawing breath through a congested throat. My limbs refused to budge, as though pinned by invisible weights. After maybe a minute, the breathing receded. When I clawed the lamp chain, the room was empty, but 2 gray handprints smeared the painted wall above the headboard, each as large as a dinner plate, dripping with condensation streaks that stank of mildew. I called the sheriff's non-emergency line. Deputy Ramirez arrived, polite but skeptical. He found no forced entry, no prints but mine, and hinted that a counselor might help with the recent transition stress. His cruiser's taillights hadn't vanished before I heard running water. The kitchen faucet was open just a crack, a thin hiss of silver. I closed it and stared at the dark window over the sink. In the pane floated a reflection. A man directly behind me, skull shaved, eyes too wide, lips half gone, watching with slack fascination. When I spun, I faced only the drip of my own sweat onto the tiles. Wednesday, I bought motion sensors and installed them like Christmas lights. I also positioned my phone on a tripod, aimed at the bed, set to record until memory filled. The unease felt physical now, a cold knitted sweater I could not remove. Reviewing the footage at dawn ripped the sweater tighter. At 1:37 a.m., the bedroom door eased open. The bald man entered, not creeping, but deliberate, the way one walks through a hallway they have memorized. He leaned over my sleeping body, his torso rising and falling with each damp breath. After 9 eternal minutes, he tilted his head toward the lens, smiled with cracked gums, and whispered, "Number 4 is ready." The file stopped there, corrupted. I locked the house, left every light blazing, and drove 50 kilometers to my college friend Marcus, who lets empty apartments behind his auto shop. My unit was safe, I thought, until I brushed my teeth that evening and noticed 3 brushes in the plastic cup. my green one, the yellow intruder, and a third, crimson. Beads of water clinging to the handle like sweat. I didn't own any crimson anything. I left the building at once, sleeping in the shop's break room with the bright fluorescent tubes humming overhead. Marcus asked, but I fed him a story about an ex stalking me. Yesterday afternoon, desperate for explanations, I visited the old bungalow beside House 17. A padlock still sealed the front, yet the back door hung a centimeter ajar. Inside, sheet-draped furniture formed white shapes in the gloom. On the mantel, I found a Polaroid photograph of a bathroom cup holding 5 toothbrushes: green, yellow, crimson, plus purple and gray. Scratched into the frame were the words, "We all learn." A floorboard snapped behind me. The bald man stood at the threshold, head cocked, as though waiting for a recital to begin. He carried a small wooden box bound with butcher's twine. "You walk too loudly," he rasped. I bolted past him, felt his fingers graze my jacket, and sprinted into the street. He did not give chase. By sunset, I was driving north with no destination, abandoning everything I owned. I stopped at the Moorlands Motel near mile marker 302, paid cash, double-locked the door, shoved a dresser against it, and inspected the bathroom. Only one toothbrush awaited me. Hospital white, brand new, lying neatly on a folded washcloth. I threw it down the toilet and watched it disappear. Sleep found me anyway. Sometime deep in the night, the mattress dipped as though someone sat beside me. A cool fingertip traced the curve of my ear. I jolted upright and met nobody. Yet on the pillow rested the wooden box from the vacant bungalow. The twine had been removed. Inside lay 6 items: 5 toothbrushes, green, yellow, crimson, purple, gray, and the chipped ceramic thimble. Nestled among them was a folded scrap of aged receipt paper. I unfolded it with shaking hands. October 12th, 1996. Purchase, Oral-B Value Pack, 6. Cashier, R. Vogel. Under the date, a note had been penciled in the same frantic hand that scratched the Polaroid frame. The neighborhood saves what it wants. Dawn painted the room orange. I ran water to splash my face and froze. In the mirror, the bald man stood behind me, but this time I could feel his breath, humid against my neck. He lifted a 6th toothbrush, midnight black, and slid it into the breast pocket of my shirt, as though pinning a boutonniere. "You brushed so well," he murmured. "Now you won't forget us." The reflection faded. The pocket remained weighted. I yanked the fabric. Empty. Yet when I looked down, bristles pressed against my skin from the inside, as if the handle were growing through my ribs 1 millimeter at a time. It has been 24 hours. The protrusion reaches my collar. Every few minutes, I taste minty paste at the back of my throat. And when I cough, little gray hairs wash onto my tongue. The motel clerk bangs the door demanding payment for another night. But the dresser will hold. I am writing this on a stolen laptop I found in the closet. its previous owner's login still active. Perhaps one of the others? If anyone reads this, do not come looking for me. Do not follow the toothbrushes. And above all, never ignore an unfamiliar object in your own bathroom. Some neighborhoods have long memories, and they are always recruiting. I realize House 17 was never mine. It was a mouth, and I was only passing food. Above the mantel, there hung a nail with nothing on it, space reserved for a 7th souvenir. When my breathing finally matches the rasp I first heard in my bedroom, the man with no eyebrows will return to collect this letter, press it flat into a frame, and hang it there. The collection will finally be complete. That will make 7, and then the court will be quiet again until the next tenant decides a misplaced brush is just forgetfulness and not an invitation.